Let me paint a picture of a couple and see if this resonates with you. Both are working professionals. She is in marketing, pulling $62,000 annually. He works in IET, bringing home $71,000. Their combined household income hits $133,000, placing them solidly in America's top 25% of earners. By all logic, they should be thriving financially, building serious wealth, maxing retirement contributions, enjoying quality vacations, experiencing genuine financial security. Instead, reality looks completely different. They're perpetually stressed, essentially living paycheck to paycheck or dangerously close to it. They've maybe accumulated 2 months of emergency expenses if we're being generous. Last month, when their vehicle needed unexpected repairs, the credit card became their only option. Both work full-time, frequently exceeding 40 hours weekly. They're exhausted constantly. During weekdays, they barely see each other, except for a few tired evening hours. The most frustrating aspect, they've executed everything correctly, according to conventional wisdom. Obtained degrees, built careers, got married, merged finances, purchased property in a decent school district. They followed the prescribed playbook perfectly, so why does it feel like they're drowning financially? Why does a 6-figure household income feel so incredibly fragile? If you've ever examined your combined earnings thinking we make too much money to feel this broke, this video will make numerous things suddenly click into place. I'm Leo, and I spend excessive time analyzing why dual-income households often find themselves worse off than single-income households from 50 years ago. Here is the reality we need to confront. We've been sold this narrative that 2 incomes inherently beat 1. Mathematically, it seems obvious, right? If one person earning $50,000 can support a family, then 2 people each earning $50,000 should support that same family, while having an extra $50,000 remaining for savings, investments, and wealth building. That is elementary addition, except that is not remotely what occurred. What actually transpired represents one of modern American history's biggest financial bait and switches, and almost nobody discusses it. The phenomenon has a name: the 2-income trap, coined by Elizabeth Warren back in 2003 when she was still a Harvard bankruptcy law professor, long before her Senate career. She and her daughter, Amelia Warren Tyagi, wrote an entire book after studying over 2,000 families who'd filed bankruptcy. Their findings were genuinely shocking. Having 2 incomes didn't enhance families' financial security. It made them more vulnerable, more likely to go bankrupt, not less. Families with 2 working parents actually filed bankruptcy more frequently than single-income families. Let that fully sink in, working twice as hard, bringing home 2 paychecks, doing everything the modern economy prescribed, and you end up more likely losing everything. That is not personal finance failure. That is a systemic trap, and you're probably standing directly in its center. Let me transport you back to 1970, because understanding history is crucial for understanding the trap. In 1970, approximately 43% of women participated in the workforce. The typical middle-class family had one primary breadwinner, usually the father, and one parent home, usually the mother, managing household operations. Here is what most people miss. That single income was genuinely sufficient, not barely adequate. Actually enough. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data and census records, a median single-income family in 1970 could afford a median-priced home spending roughly 25% of income on housing. They could afford putting kids in reasonably well-funded public schools regardless of neighborhood, and still retain money for savings and occasional family vacations. They possessed financial margin, breathing room. Critically, they had a backup plan if something went wrong. If the primary earner got sick or lost employment, the stay-at-home parent could enter the workforce. That second potential income functioned as an insurance policy, an emergency reserve activatable when needed. Fast forward to today, female workforce participation hovers around 57% and significantly higher among married mothers specifically. The 2-income household has become standard, not exceptional. In over 60% of married couples with children, both parents work. We've essentially activated the emergency backup plan as default operating mode. Here is where it gets really interesting. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics, median household income in 2023 was approximately $74,000 adjusted for inflation. That is significantly higher than median household income in 1970. We're earning more money than our parents and grandparents did. But examine what happened to costs. Median home prices in 1970, adjusted for inflation, were around $200,000 in today's money. The median home price in 2023 exceeded $400,000. Housing costs have literally doubled relative to inflation. We're around $200,000 in today's money. The median home price in 2020. Healthcare spending per household has increased over 600% since 1970. Childcare, which barely existed as major expense in the single-income era because someone was home, now costs average American families over $11,000 annually per child. That is the average. In high cost of living areas, you're looking at $20,000 to $30,000 per child annually. Education costs for college have increased over 1,200% since 1980. The fixed costs of being middle class have exploded while wages merely crept upward, and all that extra income from the second worker got absorbed. Every single dollar. The two-income family doesn't possess double the financial security of the single-income family from 1970. They have less because their fixed costs expanded, consuming both incomes, and they burn their backup plan just maintaining baseline expenses. You might be thinking, Leo, this doesn't apply to me. We're smart with money. We didn't let lifestyle inflation eat our second income. Maybe you're the exception, but let me walk through the math of what actually happens to that second income. And I want you being honest about whether this applies to your situation. Say one partner makes $70,000 and the other makes $50,000. That is $120,000 combined, which feels substantial. Let's focus on what happens to that $50,000 second income. First, taxes because of progressive tax bracket mechanics. That second income gets taxed at higher marginal rates than if it were the only income. The first $70,000 gets taxed at lower brackets, but that additional $50,000 comes in at the stack's top. Depending on your state, the effective tax rate on second income could be 30 to 35%, or higher, factoring federal income tax, state income tax, and payroll taxes. So that $50,000 immediately becomes something like $32,000 to $35,000 in actual take home. But there is more. If you have kids, you need childcare. Average daycare cost in America is approximately $15,000 annually per child. Got 2 kids? That is $30,000. You haven't even left the house yet, and you're $50,000. Income is now worth maybe $5,000. We're not done. 2 working parents means 2 commutes. The average American commute costs about $5,000 annually in gas, maintenance, and vehicle depreciation. That is if you're driving. If you're paying downtown parking, add another $2,000 to $3,000. If you need a second car you wouldn't otherwise need, add the car payment, insurance, and registration. Call it $8,000 total for the second person's commuting costs. Your $50,000 is now negative, but let's continue, because it worsens. 2 exhausted working parents means less time and energy for cooking, cleaning, home maintenance, and all tasks a stay-at-home parent might otherwise handle. Studies show dual-income families spend significantly more on convenience services and prepared foods. They're more likely hiring house cleaners, ordering delivery, paying lawn services, buying pre-made meals, and eating out more frequently because nobody has energy cooking after a 10-hour day, including commute. These exhaustion expenses can easily add another $5,000 to $10,000 annually compared to households where one person has time managing domestic labor. Let's add it up. That $50,000 second income minus $18,000 for taxes, minus $15,000 for childcare for one child, minus $8,000 for commuting costs, minus $7,000 for convenience expenses and exhaustion spending. You're at $2,000. That is not a typo. The net contribution of a $50,000 second income can realistically be as low as $2,000 annually, maybe less, maybe negative, especially with multiple children or living in high cost of living areas. Someone is working full-time, being away from kids, missing family dinners, grinding through traffic, and the household is netting $2,000 for the year. That is $8 per workday. That is $1 per hour. Here is the psychological trap. Because gross numbers look big. Because you see that $120,000 combined income on your tax return, you feel like you should be doing well. You make spending decisions based on that $120,000. You buy a house based on what 2 incomes can qualify for. You take on car payments that 2 incomes can theoretically support. The bank examines your combined income and says yes, you can afford this $400,000 mortgage. Technically, you can as long as both incomes keep flowing forever. As long as neither gets sick or laid off or burned out or needs caring for aging parents or has a child with special needs or hits any of the 1,000 unexpected life events humans encounter. This is where the trap snaps shut, and it is the part Elizabeth Warren's research really drove home. The single-income family from 1970 had something the two-income family today doesn't have: financial flexibility. If the breadwinner lost employment, the stay-at-home parent could find work. Not ideal, but it was backup. It was margin. It was resilience. The two-income family has already played that card. Both incomes are already fully committed to the monthly expenses. There is no backup plan. There is no reserve income to activate. If either partner loses employment, gets sick, or can't work for any reason, the family doesn't just lose that income. They often can't maintain fixed costs even temporarily because those costs were sized for two incomes. This is why Warren's research found two-income families were more likely filing bankruptcy. Not because they were irresponsible, because they had no margin for error. They were operating at 100% capacity with no reserves. Like a car running with no oil in the engine. Everything works fine until it doesn't, and then everything breaks simultaneously. A 2019 study from the Federal Reserve found nearly 40% of American adults couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. 40%. Many of those people are in dual-income households, making solid money on paper. They're not broke because they don't earn enough. They're broke because their expenses expanded, consuming every dollar of combined earnings, and they're one unexpected transmission repair away from financial crisis. What really gets me is the expenses that consumed the second income weren't luxury expenses. They weren't boats and vacations and frivolous spending, at least not primarily. They were housing and childcare and healthcare and education. They were the fixed costs of participating in middle class. Look at housing specifically because this is where the bidding war effect becomes clear. In the single-income era, families competed for housing based on one income. When two-income families became the norm, families suddenly had twice the purchasing power for the same houses. What happened to prices? They got bid up way up. If everyone has two incomes, then two incomes become the baseline requirement. And suddenly you need two incomes just affording what one income used to buy. It is like an arms race where everyone escalated and nobody won. Same thing happened with education. School districts are largely funded by property taxes, meaning good schools exist in expensive neighborhoods. Parents naturally want living in areas with good schools. So families started bidding up property prices in good school districts, using their two incomes to outbid others. This created what Warren calls the bidding war for educational opportunity. The price of admission to good public schools became a $400,000 mortgage instead of a $200,000 mortgage. You're not paying tuition, but you're paying the tuition equivalent in your housing costs. Once you're locked into that mortgage, you're locked into needing both incomes forever. You can't go down. You can't go back to one income. The trap has closed. Now you might be thinking, okay, Leo, but what am I supposed to do? I can't just have my partner quit their job. We need both incomes to survive. I hear you. That is exactly the trap. You need both incomes to survive the lifestyle you've built around both incomes. But here is the mindset shift that changes everything. You need to start treating the second income like it is temporary. Even if it isn't, most families do the opposite. They treat both incomes as permanent and guaranteed, and they build their fixed costs accordingly. They buy the house that two incomes can afford. They lease the cars that two incomes can support. They enroll kids in activities and schools that two incomes can pay for. Then they're stuck. They've built a life requiring two incomes to function, meaning neither partner can ever stop working, even if they want to, even if life circumstances make it necessary. The alternative approach is what I call the one-income foundation. You structure your fixed costs, your non-negotiable monthly expenses, so they can be covered by one income alone. The second income then becomes entirely discretionary: savings, investments, debt payoff, or yes, some lifestyle enhancement. But the critical difference is you could survive without it. You'd have to cut back. Sure, life wouldn't be as comfortable, but you wouldn't lose the house. You wouldn't go bankrupt. You'd have the margin modern dual. Income families have lost. Let me make this concrete. Say your household makes $130,000 combined, $75,000, $55,000. Instead of taking on a mortgage requiring $100,000 or more in annual income to service, You take on a mortgage comfortably covered by $60,000. Instead of having 2 car payments, you have 1 or none. You live in a neighborhood that is maybe slightly less prestigious with schools that are good, but not elite. You buy the house one income can afford and you bank the difference. That second income, or at least the majority of it, goes straight into building wealth. Emergency fund first, then retirement accounts, then taxable investments. Every dollar you invest is buying back optionality. It is buying flexibility to have one partner step back if needed, to be present for aging parents, to actually have choice. This requires sacrifice short term. It means driving past nice houses you could technically qualify for. It means explaining to friends why you're not upgrading lifestyle even though you got raises. It means resisting social pressure to spend like a dual income family, because you're building like a single income family. But here is the payoff. Within 5 to 10 years of this approach, something magical happens. The investments you made with that second income start generating their own income. Compounding takes over. Suddenly you actually have what you thought dual incomes would give you in the first place. Genuine financial security. You're no longer 2 job losses away from crisis. You're building wealth instead of treading water. You can make decisions based on what is best for your family, rather than what is necessary to make mortgage payment. I want leaving you with one final thought because I think it reframes this whole conversation. The 2-income trap isn't really about income. It is about flexibility. It is about margin. It is about having options. Our grandparents with 1 income had something we've traded away: the ability to absorb shock, to change direction, to have one partner focus on raising kids or caring for family, without the whole financial structure collapsing. We traded that flexibility for bigger houses and nicer cars and the appearance of prosperity. But appearances aren't wealth. Cash flow isn't security. And 2 incomes aren't better than 1 if both are already spent before they arrive. The families who thrive financially in the modern economy aren't the ones earning the most. They're the ones who've preserved their flexibility, who've refused letting expenses expand consuming income, who've kept their backup plan in reserve instead of deploying it, just keeping up with the Joneses. You can earn your way out of many problems, but you can't earn your way out of a trap you don't even know you're in. Now you know. The question is what you're going to do about it. If this video helped you see finances differently, smash that like button and subscribe for more content challenging how you think about money. I am not a financial advisor, mortgage expert, or licensed financial professional. The content on this channel represents personal opinions only and is intended for educational and entertainment purposes. Please conduct your own research and seek professional guidance before making any major financial decisions. See you next time.